Today we're going to look at Silo. Why? Well, there are a bunch of interesting yields over there, but also because Silo has solved a problem that has existed in crypto for quite some time, which is exotic collateral. If you were around for the last bull cycle, you probably remember things like flash loan or Oracle exploits hitting money markets because they had some exotic collateral with low liquidity and they could be exploited pretty easily. And because all of the loans were one big cache or pile, when they exploited it, which effectively means you pump the price of an asset with a flash loan, borrow all of the funds from a protocol, and then when the asset crashes, you keep all that you borrowed and you spent less to pump the price than you got from borrowing. Like that was a typical exploit. And as a result, all of these money markets stopped having exotic collateral. Well, Silo solves this problem because DeFi users want to be able to use all different types of collateral for their strategies, right? You have P assets, Pendle assets. You have interesting LRTs like WeETH and EasyETH. You have governance tokens that might have smaller market caps like Gains or Woo or Jones or Magic. And these are all interesting collaterals for different people. So how does Silo fix the problem? They silo the risk of different markets. Here you can see there's like $1 million of ETH lent, $1.2 million, $1,000, $500,000. And why are these different? Because the lenders are choosing which markets they want to lend to so that they're only exposed to those types of collateral. Now, why would they do this? There are different risk profiles and also there are different incentives. The really cool thing about silos is that a protocol can specifically incentivize lending for their assets leverage. On Aave, if a team wanted to incentivize borrowing against it, it would be very hard to do without using a tool like Merkle. You couldn't just incentivize the loan pool because that lent asset would be borrowable by all types of collateral. So Silo solves this by allowing protocols to incentivize direct loans on their specific assets. But whenever you want to leverage something, you really need to know what you're dealing with. So yes, very enticing yields here, but first let's know what we're working with. And when I say know what you're working with, I mean your oracles. Oracles determine whether or not a thing like a DPEG will liquidate you or have no effect on your position. Clearly you want them to have no effect. Let's find out how to prove that. So we're going to look at ETH on Optimism. This is an ETH market. These are the kind of markets that I like because you're not changing your delta. You're not like leveraging up ETH. You're just leveraging up your exposure to an LRT and its points and its yield. Okay, so here's your collateral. Here's your Oracle. Let's look at the Oracle. I've already opened it up right here. And if you go over to contract, then read contract, then description, what you will get, so contract, read contract, description, what you'll get is the type of Oracle. It says ETH exchange rate. Now the TLDR of oracles is that exchange rate oracles means you cannot get liquidated from the market price depegging, right? Because it's not a market oracle, it's an exchange rate oracle. With an exchange rate oracle, the value or the price feed comes directly from how much ETH is backing the asset. So here there is 1.01651 ETH backing ETH. That is the value being used on the Silo price. So even if someone sells $10 million of ETH and it goes down to like 1.005, it doesn't matter because that's not where the value of ETH is coming from on Silo. It's coming directly from the backing amount of ETH per ETH. So cool, exchange rate oracle. We know we're not going to get liquidated from market price movement. Awesome. And then of course you can look at your debt asset and the borrow APRs. So on Contango, we can see there are some interesting opportunities. There is WoETH, which is, well, by the way, I like Contango because it allows you to like auto leverage these things in one click. Manually leveraging can get kind of exhausting. So Contango also has no fees right now, so really easy to use. WoETH is wrapped OETH, which comes from Origin Protocol, which has a Trail of Bits audit and Open Zeppelin audit, two of the best auditors in the business, and currently is offering 45% APR. One thing to note here, though, is that there's only 134, I say only, there's 134 ETH principal for this position. What does that mean? It means that basically you can max leverage 134 ETH. So there's like 500 total ETH to borrow. So you could get up to 6.57 leverage on a max amount of 134 ETH. It's not saying this is the max total leverage. It means this is the max principal amount. There's also ETH Plus and some Silo T's to leverage, all sorts of cool exotic leverage. But I want to show you ETH, and I'll tell you why. People are mad about points. I get it. I have points fatigue myself. But there is one way to calculate points, which is relatively indisputable given current numbers. I say relatively indisputable. you can dispute it. Feel free to dispute it. Always argue with my math in the comments. Don't just say mean things. Debate my math. That's what I want. Audit my math. Show me where I could be wrong. So I have done some average APR calculations for ETHERFi, Renzo, and Eigen. ETHERFi season 3, Renzo season 3, and Eigen season who knows, between the snapshot in March, I think 18th, and the end of these seasons before LGE and September 28th. And with those numbers, I have extracted estimated average APRs of 3.7, 4.4, and 7.4. Let me show you how it works. Basically, you take the percent FDV of the airdrop, which we know it's going to be 8.25% remaining for Eigen. We know that season 3 is going to be 4% for Renzo. You just multiply that by the FDV. That tells you the size of the airdrop, right? So if it's 4% of the FDV, and the FDV is $500 million, then the airdrop size is $19 million. That's simple math. Nothing to argue about there. Right? If you then annualize that, which is just that number, the monthly, right? So this is divided by 4. You can multiply that by 12. This is the total annualized number. And then if you just take that number and divide that by the qualifying amount of the qualifying value that's getting the airdrop, which is the TVL, then you get an annualized APR of 4.37%. So the average person with the average point boost in Renzo season 3 should be getting an APR of 4.37%. If you're doing better than the average, meaning you're getting a higher point boost than average, you'll get better than 4.3. If you're doing lower than the average point boost, you'll get lower than 4.3. But this will be the average APR for the average user at current values. This is a really cool way to predict the yield of an airdrop. So instead of trying to calculate how many points might there be by the end of the date, you just use the size of the airdrop as a portion of the TVL. It's really cool. So I like this new method. It makes things a little bit easier. And I've done that for Eigen as well. Now, there are some assumptions here, like all of that 8.2% will be snapshot by September 28th. We don't really know that. That's the leading assumption. So take that with a grain of salt. We also are assuming that 24 points per ETH deposited is going to be the base rate. We don't really know that. Eigen hasn't said anything. We're kind of flying blind here. But if this information is correct, we know the current TVL, we do know the current FDV according to AVO pricing. That would mean an additional 7.38% for ETH restakers into Eigen, right? It's a pretty good APR boost. I've also used a points speculator, which is 23 billion points by September 28th. This is a projection by Vic Vinegar. He's a phenomenal quant that I follow. With his projections, I get almost the exact same average APR boost. So FDV pulled from AVO, total points pulled from Vic Vinegar's projections, same average point boost. So using two different methods, we're getting the same data, which is really good and kind of empowering. Now, if we do that, then we're getting an additional potential 11.7% APR on our collateral. Now, with leverage, this gets really exciting. So going back here, looking at this, right? Total bar APR is 4.6%. Total deposit APR is 3.9% plus 3.3% from the base intrinsic yield of Easy ETH. So roughly, what is that? 7.2 plus 11% from the points. It gets really exciting. I've done the math. So res points, 4.3%. Eigen points, 6.64%. Why is this lower than the 7%? Because I've effectively said that one Easy ETH is about 90% efficient, right? You're going to get about 90% of the Eigen points you should get from just one restaked ETH. Renzo base APR, 3.3%. Pulled this right from the front end. OP incentives, 3.7%. Collateral APR, 0.3. Total, 18.31%. I did the same thing with the borrowing. So borrow cost is 10.9. OP incentives are giving you 6.2% on your borrow. Net, 4.7. With these numbers, max yield at max leverage at max LTV, 102%. But you can get liquidated. You can't. It's an exchange rate oracle. The only way you get liquidated is if you do not compound those OP incentives into more Easy ETH collateral, because your debt can increase. So if your liquidation LTV is 90%, you start at 86%, your debt slowly rises over time, because what interest rate means, your debt increases, and if it hits that liquidation LTV, then you get liquidated, but you can't get liquidated from price action or peg. So do keep that in mind. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Silo is a very cool protocol, allows you to silo your risk, get exposure to exotic types of collateral. It is totally loopable automatically through Contango, and I highly recommend checking out these protocols. I am an ambassador for all protocols mentioned in this video. Keep that in mind and have a wonderful rest of your day.